How you guys doing? Nice to see you guys.
So in the DC universe, Tim and George have kind of had almost the monopoly, the co-monopoly on Superman. So what did Matt bring to the role that was maybe a little different than previous incarnations?
Everybody brings their own twist to it, and it's sometimes hard to actually identify specifically what it is. It has to do with their own specific view of what they think Superman is and what they think Clark Kent is. And there's a vocal quality, because you've typically got a Superman with a pretty good sized set of shoulders and a very small waist. And so you have to worry about, what does that physically sound like? Does that sound like a big deep voice? Which we kind of reserve more for Batman. Superman can have a somewhat lighter voice. But what Matt brings to it too is also a youth. There's a youth to his voice that's very appropriate for this particular piece.
What's the through line of all the Superman voices that you've worked with? What do you see that they have in common?
There's got to be a strength, and at the same time there has to be a vulnerability, where you feel like that this is not just an alien, but actually someone with human emotions and feelings, and a sensitivity that's really important, I think. I don't think Batman as often, for example, just to make another superhero comparison, I don't think Batman has as much emotions on the surface. He hides them better. Superman is a little bit more overt about him. He actually expresses the way he feels about things, and I think that's maybe the biggest difference. Surely you have other questions. We're trying to be polite.
What about Lois Lane? I'm always really curious about how you select the right voice, how exactly you want Lois Lane to sound, because she's tough, independent, like she's the epitome of the independent woman in the DC universe. Right.
You have to be careful too that in finding a voice for Lois, that the strength is there, but it's still a likable character, because she is, an investigative reporter. So she's used to asking the hard questions and tough and trying to get what she needs, and she's a really tough woman. But there's got to be a vulnerability and a femininity that Clark Kent and Superman react to. So it's always that kind of finding an actress who's got that quality to their voice and that acting ability. And Stana Katic is just excellent at it. Wait till you see how good she is. She's great.
Do you have any sort of cute anecdotes about this particular cast getting offered these iconic?
I don't so much about that, but I do have one really cute story that I thought about coming here. Jimmy Olsen is played by Alexander Gould, who you may know from specifically on camera Weeds. He was the youngest son on Weeds, and I had been watching Weeds, and so he came to my mind. Let me bring him in. He's so great. He's got such a great voice. His voice had just changed, which we all heard during the production of Weeds. We heard him grow up, and so his age was just right. And so, as I always do when I bring actors in and I haven't worked with them before, I walk them up to the microphone and I chat with them and I warm them up and I get, just want them to feel comfortable. And I said to him, it's really nice to meet you. I'm delighted to have you here. So, have you done voices for animation before? And he looks at me with those big eyes and he goes, I'm Nemo. And I went, oh my Lord, I should be thrown out of the industry for not knowing that you were Nemo. So the kid's got like one of the best, I love that role, he's so good as Nemo. But of course you wouldn't recognize the voice because it's a completely different voice now, as you guys do when you change your voices in puberty.
Matt Bomer had actually gotten close to playing Superman in real life, and then that got me thinking that a lot of people who voice the animated characters actually do have a physical resemblance and could probably play them in real life. Do you feel that is kind of a coincidence?
It is. It's purely a coincidence because I don't deal with their physical being. I really don't. I listen to what their voice sounds like, and when people, we all sit together and sort of brainstorm who would be fun as Superman, who would be good, who would be, and then we all start mentioning names, and then you think of someone, you go, okay, I know who that actor is. Now, what does his voice really sound like when you only put that voice away from the physicality of that actor? And so I had to listen to some of Matt's interviews and some of his work without looking at him and just go, no, that voice is great. That voice will work exactly right for what we're doing. So that's a thing that casting for animation, you have to separate their physicality from their voices.
How did you go about deciding how Brainiac would sound? Because in previous incarnations, sometimes they've gone with like a robot voice.
Right. The truth of it is, on this one, I had met John Noble at a Comic-Con at one of the Warner Brothers parties about 3 years ago, and I said, I would love for you to come and play on one of these DC Universe projects. And he said, I'd be delighted to come. It'd be really fun. And so I just was looking for something for him. And when the role of Brainiac came up, I went, oh, well, I got a role for John Noble finally. And so what was so great about John, too, is that he had really good ideas himself. and that's what you want, is you don't want to just bring an actor in and force them into a performance. You want their input, you want their creative thoughts. And he had lots of nice, fun ideas. And so together we came up with what that voice would sound like. So, and the trick, of course, was to make sure he wasn't doing his native accent, his Australian accent. We have to always, fight away from that. And he's really good at doing an American accent. But that's just one of those things where you go, I don't think we can make it really specific where Brainiac comes from on the planet Earth. We have to actually have him have an unidentifiable accent or no accent at all, which is what we ultimately went for.
Was there any role that was particularly tough to cast?
Let's see. Looking. Not in this one. Not in this one. These were all pretty straightforward. There is one character who speaks Korean, I think. I had to find an actor who could speak Korean. And every once in a while I've had that sort of challenge where, I forget which film it was, but there was a scene where Wonder Woman is rescuing a bunch of Vietnamese women from a camp. And I had to have some walla in there, and I wanted it to be real. So I went to my nail girls and told them what the English dialogue was, and they translated it for me, and I brought a little recorder and I recorded them saying it in Vietnamese and brought it to the American voiceover actress and had her listen to it over and over and over again until she could duplicate it, which was just great fun. It was just great.
When it comes to discovering the talent that you want to work with, do you literally sit at home and watching TV and hear an actor say something?
Yep.
And does it also go in regular life? You're at the bank and the teller has a great voice and you're like,
I hear the voice and I appreciate the voice, but so much of voice acting is the acting aspect, and there's been so many people that have come to me with really interesting, beautiful, unusual, quirky voices that just can't act. So whenever actors ask me, or wannabe actors ask me, what should I do to be a voiceover actor, I always say first, take an acting class. Take an acting class first. Learn how to act, learn the terminology, then deal with the voice acting aspect of it. But yeah, I listen to voices all the time. Even on the phone, I'll be talking to somebody, even a phone solicitor, just go, can I identify that accent? How old do I think that person is? And then, of course, there's always those people that you listen to, specifically females usually, and you hear their voice and you're like, are you 12 years old? And they're, 27, but they've got that little girly voice, that will never change, which is great. Someone like a Nancy Cartwright who plays Bart Simpson, you never have to worry about recasting her because her voice changed. She's always going to be able to do it. Like June Foray was able to do Rocket J. Squirrel. I mean, she's 93 or something. She can still do the voice of Rocket J. Squirrel. So that's one of those great things about women who have those kinds of voices.
You talked about bringing actors into the DC fold. Has it just been a coincidence that so many of them have worked with Nathan Fillion and also have him himself?
Well, the thing is that Joss Whedon is my casting guru. He just has such an eye for talent. And so I pretty much look at whatever he is working on and just look at it. At this point, with the exception of maybe one actor, I've used everybody from the Firefly cast. I have cast every single person. They're all just so very, very good. And I love watching Castle and going, oh, look, there's Adam Baldwin. Oh, cool, there's, Gina Torres or whatever. All people that I've worked with, too. So it is as much coincidence as Nathan tends to work with really cool people and people that seem to know this world, and then I just bring them into it and they're great. We too hear Molly Quinn as Supergirl on this. She's so good. And she's so good on Castle. I don't know if you guys are fans of Castle or not, but their energy together is so good. And I had hired Molly before on a series called Ben 10 that I had been directing. And then when this role came up, I went, I know who can do this. I know who's got that nice youthful quality, who can act it certainly, but also can give that strength. Supergirl's got to have some strength too, even though it's got to have the youthfulness. And oftentimes when you find an actress that can give you that strength, the voice becomes mature. They equate strength with deepening the voice. And so you have to keep that youth without losing the strength.
So this version of Supergirl is supposed to be a little different than the Summer Glau version that you did previously.
Correct. It is. Do you know the story of this piece?
Of this one?
This one.
About to find out soon, hopefully.
Yay! Good. Well, you'll see why it had to be a little bit different in how she does it. And the truth of it is, you don't want to repeat yourself either as a director or as a producer or as an organization, whatever. You want to continually grow and do different things and find things that are interesting. So it does make sense to cast different people sometimes. The truth of it is, there's some people that I would never recast. For example, I would always use Kevin Conroy as Batman if they would let me. But my directive comes from DC Comics and Warner Brothers Animation and Warner Home Video, and they sometimes say, because the art style is going to be different, because the story is so different, we want a different Batman this time. But my first question always is, can I use Kevin Conroy? Or can I use Mark Hamill? Or can I use Tim Daly? And then, based on what the material is, then we make a decision as to whether or not that's the best choice. You didn't ask one question. Do you have anything to ask? It's okay, I'm not putting you on the spot. I want to make sure we're not just overshadowing you.
No, I just always feel like I know nothing when it comes to people who seem way more knowledgeable about these sorts of things.
Okay, no pressure.
Is there a advice, like a 101 level advice, when somebody who's a good actor and who was used to being on camera and they come in and maybe they're nervous about playing an icon, or maybe they've just never done it voice only? Is there the one thing that you can say that kind of gets them off on the right foot?
Yes, I tell them I will never let their voice go out sounding bad. I will work with them until their voice sounds right, until the performance sounds good, until it's something they can be proud of. There's absolutely no purpose for me ever to embarrass an actor by not getting the best possible performance. And so if it takes staying longer, then we'll stay longer and work through it. And there have been times when I've recorded an entire piece, start to finish, with an actor, and they finished it and they said, I have a thought after we've done the whole thing, because they've had the experience. What if we were to change the voice and add, 20% more rasp to it? And how about if we played Batman? And I'm like, that's great. Let's go back and do the whole thing again. It's a lot faster the second time because we kind of work through the beats and we understand it. But that has happened. We've actually gone back and re-recorded the whole thing, and it's better for making that change.
On that note, how long does it take to be able to record the different voices, or does it just depend on
start to finish the whole
start to
project?
finish.
About a month.
About a month.
I mean, in really crunch time, we've done it in 2 weeks, but that's really hard. The problem is there'll be an actor you really want, and someone like Matt, who's so busy. I really wanted him, and he just couldn't do it in the first 2 week window that I had, so we were able to extend an extra week so that we could get him. It was worth waiting for. So, but usually about a month. When I can get ensemble records, meaning when I can get everybody together, I can do it in 2 days. But I had to get Stana and Molly and Matt in the room at the same time was just impossible. Their shoot schedules just didn't line up. If they're on hiatus all at the same time, and they're not on vacation in Europe somewhere, then I can get them all together, and that's fun. Green Lantern, I had Sinestro and Green Lantern record together, Christopher Maloney and Victor Garber. They were together.
I must move her.
All right then. Thanks you guys. Pleasure seeing you all.